The wind howled across the barren plains of Vayara, carrying dust and ash from the distant mountains. In the small village of Nearith, people went about their daily chores, unaware that today would bring a change unlike any other. Mothers whispered prayers for safety, children played in the dirt streets, and elders sat beneath the shade of ancient trees speaking of times long past. Suddenly, the sound of hurried footsteps broke the usual calm. Villagers paused and turned, squinting through the dusty air. A figure appeared on the horizon, limping slightly but moving with determination. Her clothes were torn and covered with grime, her hair tangled from months of travel. "Mother, I have returned," the young woman called, her voice trembling but strong. The villagers gasped. All eyes turned toward the small hut at the edge of the village. From inside, a frail woman stepped out, her hands trembling as she clutched her shawl. It was Ilara, the mother. She had waited for this day for many years, hoping against hope that her daughter might return. "Lyra," Ilara whispered, tears filling her eyes. She dropped to her knees, staring at the approaching figure. Her heart raced. Could it really be her daughter, who had been lost in the distant wastelands for over 5 years? Lyra's legs shook as she neared her mother, but she forced herself forward. "Mother, it is me," she said again, her eyes shining with both fear and relief. She collapsed into Ilara's arms, and the mother held her tightly, feeling her daughter's warmth for the first time in years. The villagers gathered slowly, murmuring among themselves. Some whispered that the girl might be an illusion, a spirit sent to test them. Others, seeing the undeniable resemblance between mother and daughter, felt awe and disbelief. Lyra's return was a miracle, a spark of life in a world that had grown harsh and unforgiving. Lyra pulled back slightly to look at her mother's face. "Mother, there is someone I must introduce. This man, he has taken great care of me." Ilara's eyes widened in confusion. "A man?" she asked softly. "Who is he?" From the shadows of the trees, a tall figure emerged. He moved calmly with a quiet strength that immediately drew attention. His skin was slightly tanned, his clothes practical but unlike anything the villagers wore. There was an air of mystery around him, and even the most skeptical of villagers felt a shiver of curiosity. "I am Kyle," the man said simply. His voice was deep but gentle. "I only helped her survive." "That is all?" Lyra smiled faintly at him. "He saved my life, Mother. I would not be here without him." Ilara looked from her daughter to this stranger. Something about Kyle made her uneasy, but the way Lyra spoke with trust and gratitude eased her fear slightly. Still, questions swirled in her mind. Who was he? Where did he come from? And why had he helped her daughter for so long? The villagers watched silently as Lyra and Kyle approached the center of the village. Some whispered to each other, "Who is this man? Is he friend or danger?" Others simply stared in wonder, seeing human strength and courage in someone so different from them. Lyra's voice broke the silence. "Mother, I have seen things no one here could imagine. I have survived storms, wild creatures, and dangers that would have ended my life if not for Kale. He never left me, not even when the nights were cold and the days were long." The villagers listened, rapt. Tales of bravery and survival always captured their hearts, but this story seemed almost impossible. And yet Lyra stood before them alive and determined. The proof of her journey could not be denied. Kale spoke quietly, almost humbly. "It was not easy. The land is dangerous, but she was strong. Humans, we have ways to endure." His words were simple, but they carried weight. Even the villagers who did not understand him felt a sense of respect. Ilara's hands trembled as she brushed the dust from her daughter's clothes. "Tell me everything, Lyra," she said softly. "I need to know where you have been and how you survived." Lyra nodded. "It will take time, Mother. There is much to tell. The journey was long, and there are things you will not believe at first." She glanced at Kale. "But I want you to know him. He is not like anyone you have seen." Kale's eyes met hers, and for a moment there was quiet understanding between them. He had not sought recognition or praise. He had only wanted to protect. Yet now, standing among strangers who stared with awe, he could not help but feel the weight of responsibility. The villagers began to offer food and water, bringing baskets of fruit and jars of water. Children approached cautiously, curious about the stranger who had saved their friend. Some dared to touch Kale's hands, and he smiled gently, showing no sign of discomfort. He treated them with care, earning their trust slowly but surely. As the sun began to set, the village gathered around a small fire. Lyra sat beside her mother, recounting fragments of her journey. She spoke of deserts with shifting sands that swallowed everything, of storms that roared like wild beasts, and of nights so cold that her breath froze in the air. Kale added small details, explaining how they found shelter in caves, purified water from underground springs, and used clever methods to hunt for food without attracting dangerous predators. The villagers listened, amazed at the ingenuity and courage displayed by this man and the girl he protected. Even the elders, who had lived through many hardships themselves, were impressed. They muttered to each other, "Such strength, such cleverness. Perhaps humans are more than we thought." Lyra's mother, still holding her daughter's hand, looked at Kale with gratitude and something else, curiosity mixed with respect. "You risked much for my child," she said softly. "Why?" Kyle looked at her calmly. "Because she needed help. Because she was worth it. That is all." Ilara studied him, sensing the truth in his words. There was no pride, no demand for reward, only a simple, unshakable determination to protect. And somehow, in a way she could not fully understand, she felt that humans, with their courage and ingenuity, could bring new hope to her village. The night deepened, and the villagers began to leave the fire, returning to their homes. Yet whispers continued. Some spoke of Kale's strength, others of Lyra's incredible survival. The village had not seen anything like this in generations. A human who could endure what others could not, and a girl who had returned against all odds. Lyra stayed beside her mother, finally resting after years of struggle. "Mother, I am home," she said quietly. Ilara hugged her tightly, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, my daughter, you are home, and we will face whatever comes next, together." Kale watched silently from a distance, knowing his work was far from over. The dangers Lyra had survived were only a small part of what the universe held. Yet for now, he allowed himself a moment of peace, knowing that the first step, bringing Lyra safely home, was complete. And so, under the star-filled sky of Vayara, a lost daughter returned. A mysterious protector stood by her side, and a small village began to glimpse the extraordinary courage and ingenuity of humans, a force that would change their world forever. The next morning, sunlight bathed the village of Nyrith in soft golden light. The air smelled of fresh grass and warm earth, a quiet contrast to the dusty winds of the previous day. Villagers were already awake, going about their chores, but their eyes kept drifting to Lyra and Kale. Kale moved with calm confidence, helping Lyra carry water from the nearby stream. His movements were precise and efficient, yet gentle. He spoke little, but every action seemed purposeful. Villagers whispered to each other, wondering who he really was and where he had come from. Lyra noticed their curiosity and smiled. "He is human," she said almost proudly. "And humans. We survive when others cannot. He kept me alive when everything seemed lost." A few of the elders shook their heads, skeptical. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy, almost legends in their minds. Some feared they might bring danger, while others could not help but admire their abilities. Kale knelt by the stream, showing Lyra how to collect water safely without stirring the sand below. "The water stays cleaner if you disturb the bottom as little as possible," he explained quietly. Lyra followed his instructions carefully, noticing how thoughtful he was. One elder, Talon, approached cautiously. His hair was white and his eyes carried the weight of many years. "You speak of survival, yet you are far from your home," he said to Kale. "Why help her? What do you gain?" Kale looked up calmly, meeting Talon's eyes. "I gain nothing," he said simply. "I help because she needed it. Life is worth saving. That is all." Talon frowned but nodded slightly. There was honesty in Kale's tone that could not be denied. Even though humans were strangers, some of the villagers began to feel a sense of trust. Lyra led Kale to the village center. "There is much to show you," she said. "The fields, the animals, the huts. Everything you need to know if you are to stay and help." Kyle nodded, scanning the surroundings. He observed the tools, the farming methods, and the daily routines of the villagers. Though simple, these methods were effective for their land. Still, Kale's eyes glimmered with ideas, small improvements that could make life safer and easier. Over the next few hours, Kale quietly assisted the villagers. He reinforced the huts with stronger supports, showed them how to store water safely, and even repaired broken farming tools using materials at hand. His knowledge, though unfamiliar, was practical and precise. Children followed him curiously. They watched as he used a simple pulley system to lift heavy loads, amazed by how easily he solved problems that had seemed impossible. One little girl reached out to touch the rope. Kale smiled and guided her hands. "See? It is easier when you work with the rope, not against it," he said. The child giggled, thrilled by the lesson. Lyra watched with quiet pride. "He is more than just strong," she whispered to her mother. "He thinks, he plans, he protects. Everything he does helps people survive." Ilara nodded slowly, her mind still grappling with the idea. Humans were rare here, almost mythic, and yet Kale moved as if he belonged. His presence brought hope and safety without even trying. That evening, a meeting was held in the village square. Villagers gathered around a fire, murmuring among themselves. Some were curious, others wary, but all wanted to hear Lyra and Kale speak. Lyra took a deep breath. "I want to tell you about the dangers I faced before I returned," she began. Her voice was steady, though her hands shook slightly. "I traveled across lands no one here could imagine. The winds were sharp as blades. The nights cold enough to freeze water in moments, and creatures roamed that would have destroyed me if Kale had not been there." The villagers leaned closer, captivated. They had faced challenges of their own, but nothing like what Lyra described. Her words painted vivid images of survival against all odds. Kale added softly, "The land is full of dangers, but humans adapt. We make tools, we plan, we watch the smallest details. We do not give up easily," an elder muttered, almost in disbelief. "Such strength, such patience." "I have never seen it," another woman spoke quietly. "Perhaps humans are different, not only in body but in mind. They can endure what we cannot." Kyle did not respond. He only nodded slightly and returned to helping Lyra. Yet even his quiet presence inspired admiration. The villagers began to notice his calm confidence, his clever solutions, and his unwavering determination. Days passed, and Kale's impact became more evident. He helped improve irrigation for the fields, ensuring crops survived even during dry spells. He showed villagers how to build simple traps to catch small animals for food without harming the environment. He taught children how to protect themselves during storms and how to find clean water, even in difficult conditions. The villagers slowly began to trust him. They saw that his methods worked, that his ideas made life easier, and that he genuinely cared for Lyra and, by extension, for them. Even Talon, the skeptical elder, admitted quietly, "There is wisdom in his ways. Perhaps humans are extraordinary." One night, while Lyra and Kale sat beside a small fire, she looked at him with gratitude. "You did so much for me," she said softly. "I do not know what I would have done without you." Kale shook his head. "You were always strong. I only helped you use that strength. Humans survive because we keep going, even when the world seems impossible. You have that strength too, Lyra." Lyra smiled, feeling a warmth she had not felt for years. It was not just the fire. It was trust, safety, and the knowledge that someone cared for her without expecting anything in return. Suddenly, a distant noise interrupted their conversation. A low rumble, almost like a growl, echoed from the hills surrounding the village. Villagers froze, peering into the darkness. Some whispered about wild creatures, while others feared something worse, bandits or raiders. Kale stood, his eyes scanning the shadows. "Stay calm," he said quietly but firmly. "Whatever it is, we can handle it if we work together." Lyra stood beside him, feeling courage she had not known she possessed. "They will not harm us," she said, more to herself than anyone else. "Not while he is here." As the rumble grew closer, villagers gathered behind Kyle and Lyra. The tall human moved among them, giving instructions in a calm, confident tone. He showed them how to form barriers, use simple tools as defenses, and stay together. His leadership was quiet but unmistakable. When the danger arrived, a pack of large, aggressive predators from the hills, Kale acted quickly. Using his knowledge of the land, he led the villagers to safe positions, guiding their movements to confuse and scare off the attackers. His strategies were precise, combining timing, terrain, and clever traps. The predators, unfamiliar with the villagers' new tactics, were forced to retreat. Villagers cheered, amazed at the human who had protected them. Some ran to hug Kale, while others simply stared in awe. Ilara, holding her daughter's hand, whispered, "This man, he is more than a protector, he is extraordinary." Lyra smiled faintly. "I told you, Mother. Humans survive. We endure, and some of us, we protect others along the way. The night settled calm and quiet once again. The villagers returned to their homes, speaking in hushed, excited tones about Kale and the strength of humans. They had seen courage, ingenuity, and determination in action, qualities they had never fully understood before. Kyle stood quietly, looking at the stars above. He knew the universe was full of dangers and their journey was far from over. Yet for now he had earned the trust of these people, and that trust could be the difference between survival and disaster. Lyra rested her head on her mother's shoulder, feeling safe for the first time in years. "Thank you," she whispered to Kale, though he did not hear her over the night winds. Kale's work was only beginning. The universe would bring more challenges, more dangers, and more mysteries. But one thing was certain. With courage, ingenuity, and determination, humans could endure and inspire those around them to rise beyond fear. And in the village of Neareth, the first seeds of hope were planted, carried on the quiet strength of a human protector who had arrived from the stars to change their world forever. The village of Neareth had grown quiet again after the night the predators were driven away. The villagers whispered to each other about Kale, the human who had saved them, and Lyra, the daughter who had returned against all odds. But even as peace settled, not all eyes in the universe were kind. Far beyond Veyara, a scouting ship hovered near the edge of the system. On board, a group of alien explorers observed Neareth through high-powered sensors. Their interest was not in the village itself, but in something, or someone, that had appeared with the lost daughter. "The human is here," one of the aliens said, its voice a strange mix of clicks and tones. "It has unusual abilities. We should investigate," another nodded. "This could disrupt our plans. If we take it, we gain knowledge and control." Back in Neareth, the villagers were unaware of the Watchers. The days passed with Lyra and Kyle working side by side, teaching, building, and improving life in the village. Kale showed them how to dig better irrigation channels, repair broken tools efficiently, and use the natural resources wisely. Children followed him like a curious swarm, learning skills they had never seen before. "Watch closely," Kale said as he demonstrated a trap to catch fish safely. "You must observe, plan, and act carefully. Strength is not enough. The mind is just as important." Villagers began to understand that humans were different. Not just strong, but clever. They adapted quickly, solved problems creatively, and faced danger without fear. Even elders like Talon could not hide their admiration. "I have seen many things in my life," he said quietly, "but the courage and cleverness of this human, it is remarkable." Lyra felt proud of Kale, but she also felt a sense of foreboding. "Something will come," she whispered one evening as they watched the sunset from a small hill outside the village. "I can feel it. The universe does not forgive miracles." Kale looked at her, eyes calm yet alert. "Perhaps," he said, "but we are ready if it does." That night, the first signs appeared. Strange lights flickered on the horizon, accompanied by a deep hum that made the ground vibrate slightly. The villagers woke, frightened, unsure of what to expect. Kyle moved quickly, organizing them with quiet authority. "Stay calm. Gather your families in the center. Do not run. Watch for signals from me." The villagers obeyed, their trust in Kale growing with each instruction. They followed him to the central square, where he quickly marked positions for defense using ropes, poles, and simple tools. Every move was deliberate, designed to maximize safety and minimize risk. The first attackers arrived, large flying machines piloted by aliens, gliding silently over the fields. They were fast and armed, designed to intimidate and destroy. The villagers gasped, but Kyle remained calm. "Remember what I taught you," he said. "Stay together. Use what you have. The ground can be your ally." Using simple signals, Kale directed villagers to hide behind barriers, use trenches, and move strategically. He even showed them how to use the ropes and poles to trip or slow down the machines if they landed. Lyra's heart pounded as she helped children into safe positions. She looked at Kale, who was already moving toward the edge of the village to confront the intruders. His stance was confident, and his eyes scanned every detail. The attackers began landing in small groups, attempting to push the villagers back. But Kale had prepared for this. Using clever traps and terrain advantages, the villagers were able to resist. Some machines got caught in hidden nets, while others were forced to retreat after hitting simple yet effective barriers. Kale moved among them, directing their actions with calm precision. To the left! Use the slope! Do not panic. His voice carried over the chaos, steady and commanding. The villagers followed his instructions, amazed at his ability to see solutions that none of them could imagine. Even Lyra, who had survived so much before, felt awe. He thinks differently, she whispered. Not like us. He sees the path we cannot. Hours passed, and the attackers realized the village was harder to conquer than they expected. Kale used simple but ingenious strategies, leveraging the villagers' knowledge of the land, improvising traps, and predicting enemy movements. By nightfall, the aliens retreated, leaving the village intact. The villagers erupted in cheers. They had seen courage, intelligence, and teamwork combine in ways they had never imagined. Kyle stood among them, quietly scanning the horizon, ensuring no further danger approached. Talon approached him cautiously. You are not like anyone we have known. How do you do these things? Kale smiled faintly. We plan, we adapt, and we do not give up. Humans endure because we must. We survive because we think, we act, and we care for each other. The words sank into the villagers' minds. They realized that strength alone was not enough. The combination of courage, intelligence, and cooperation made humans extraordinary. Lyra hugged her mother tightly that night. See, Mother? I told you he is more than a protector, he is human. Ilara nodded, finally understanding the depth of what had happened. Yes, humans, you are remarkable. The following days were filled with preparation. Kale helped the villagers build better shelters, improve defenses, and train small groups to act together if danger came again. He emphasized strategy, observation, and clever use of resources. One day, while working on reinforcing a water channel, Kale paused to look at Lyra. You have strength too, he said quietly. You survived the wastelands. You guided me when needed. Humans are not alone. We grow stronger when we help each other. Lyra smiled, feeling hope she had not known for years. I will not forget. I will help the village as much as you have helped me. Word of the attack spread beyond the village. Traders, travelers, and nearby settlements whispered about the humans in Neareth and their clever protector. Some were inspired, seeing a symbol of hope and strength. Others were wary, realizing that humans could change the balance of power in unexpected ways. As night fell, the village gathered around a large fire once more. Villagers shared stories of courage, resilience, and determination. Children listened wide-eyed, learning that survival required more than skill. It required heart, cleverness, and trust. Kale stood slightly apart, watching the flames flicker. He knew the universe held greater dangers than the small attack they had faced. Yet he also knew that courage, ingenuity, and unity could overcome even the most formidable challenges. Lyra joined him, holding his hand briefly. Do you think we can handle what comes next? She asked softly. Kyle looked at the stars above. We can. Humans endure, and those who believe in us endure too. Together we will face whatever comes, and so, under the quiet night sky of Vayara, the village of Neareth began to see the true power of humans, not just in strength but in courage, intelligence, and the ability to inspire those around them. The first major threat had come, and they had survived. But this was only the beginning. The universe would test them again, and the lessons of today would be the foundation for tomorrow. The days after the attack were quiet, but the air in Neareth was filled with a new energy. Villagers moved with purpose, repairing structures, reinforcing defenses, and following Kale's instructions with careful attention. Humans' clever ways had begun to change the rhythm of life in the village. Kale walked among them, quietly observing. He saw the villagers learning quickly, adapting to new methods and helping each other. Even small children mimicked his movements, practicing tasks like carrying water or securing simple barriers. Lyra followed closely, helping wherever she could. One morning, Kale gathered a group of farmers near the fields. The rains will come soon, he said, and they can destroy crops if we are not ready. Watch me. He demonstrated how to build small dikes and channels to guide water safely to the fields. The villagers watched, astonished at the simplicity yet brilliance of the method. They quickly began to replicate his work, impressed by the human ability to solve problems using logic and observation. Talon, the elder, approached cautiously. I have lived many years, he said slowly, and I have never seen such cleverness. Your methods, they make life safer, easier, but why do you share this with us? Kale looked at him calmly. Because knowledge should help others. Survival is easier when people work together. Humans survive by learning, by thinking, and by helping each other. Lyra smiled, feeling proud of him. He teaches not for reward, she whispered to her mother. He teaches because it matters. Ilara studied Kale for a moment, understanding the truth in her daughter's words. Humans were not just strong. They were wise, creative, and caring. Their ingenuity could save lives, change communities, and inspire hope where there was fear. As days passed, Kale's presence became a cornerstone of village life. He taught the villagers how to use simple tools more effectively, how to purify water safely, and how to reinforce their homes against storms. Villagers began to trust him, and some even approached him with questions about places beyond Vayara, curious about the wider universe. One evening, Kale and Lyra sat outside the village, watching the sun sink behind the distant mountains. The village is learning quickly, Kale said quietly. They have courage, but they lacked a way to see solutions beyond their usual methods. Now they do, Lyra nodded. You have changed so much here. I feel proud, not just of the village, but of what humans can do. Kale shook his head. I do not deserve that. Humans endure because we must. We survive because we try again and again. The courage is theirs as much as mine. Suddenly a small child ran toward them, eyes wide with excitement. Kale! Kale! Look what I made. The child held up a simple water trap he had constructed, copying Kale's design from the previous day. Kale knelt down and examined it carefully. Excellent, he said, smiling. You understood the principle. That is more important than copying exactly. You adapted it. Lyra watched, feeling a warmth in her chest. Humans inspired others not by strength alone, but by showing possibilities, encouraging growth, and teaching courage through action. That night, the village gathered around the central fire once more. Stories were shared of bravery, survival, and clever solutions to problems. The villagers now spoke of Kale not just as a protector, but as a teacher, a guide, and a friend. Even the elders, once skeptical, nodded with admiration. Talon spoke quietly. I have seen many things in my life, but this human has shown wisdom, courage, and care. Perhaps humans are meant to survive in ways no one else can. Ilara watched her daughter and Kale from a distance. She felt a sense of peace, but also awareness. The universe was vast and unpredictable. If humans could inspire hope here, then what else could they do elsewhere? Days turned into weeks. Kale continued to guide, teach, and assist. Lyra became his companion in all tasks, learning not only survival skills but also leadership, strategy, and the quiet strength of humans. They worked together on improving farming techniques, constructing barriers for protection, and designing simple alarm systems for the village. The villagers began to take pride in their own abilities, encouraged by Kale's guidance. They learned that strength alone was not enough. Thinking, planning, and cooperation were just as important. Human ingenuity had transformed them, and they began to see themselves in a new light. One morning, a messenger arrived from a nearby settlement. There is news, he said, eyes wide. Other villages speak of humans in Neareth, and they fear what humans can do. Lyra frowned. Fear? Why? Kale looked thoughtful. Because they do not understand. Humans do things differently. But fear is not always bad. It can prepare others for change, Ilara whispered to her daughter. Your protector. He is extraordinary. Not just for you, but for everyone here. Humans. They are remarkable. The days that followed were busy. Kale continued to train villagers in practical skills, from emergency planning to efficient farming. He emphasized observation, careful thinking, and patience. Lyra assisted him, becoming a bridge between the villagers and Kyle. Together, they worked to prepare for any future threats. One afternoon, Kyle called a meeting with the elders and village leaders. The world is not always safe, he said calmly. You must be ready. Use your minds. Work together. Trust each other. That is the human way of surviving danger. Talon nodded, finally fully convinced. We will follow your guidance. We see the truth of your words. Humans endure because they learn, adapt, and care. Lyra smiled quietly. She saw how Kale's presence had changed everything, how he had inspired courage, creativity, and hope. Humans were not just survivors. They were innovators, teachers, and leaders in ways others could barely understand. That evening, As the sun dipped below the horizon, a distant rumble shook the village. The villagers froze, recalling the previous attacks, but Kale's calm voice carried through the square. "Stay together. Watch carefully. We are ready." From the hills emerged a small group of scouts, humans or aliens the villagers could not tell at first. But Kale did not hesitate. He quickly assessed the situation, positioning villagers behind barriers and instructing them on how to respond. His strategies were precise, combining intelligence, observation, and the villagers' knowledge of their land. The scouts approached cautiously, clearly surprised to see a human leading the village. Kale's presence, calm and commanding, seemed to make them hesitate. The villagers, now confident in their new skills, followed his instructions perfectly. The scouts retreated, recognizing the strength and organization of the village under Kale's guidance. The villagers cheered, amazed at what they had accomplished together. Human ingenuity had not only protected them, but also earned respect from outsiders. Lyra hugged her mother tightly that night. "Do you see, Mother?" she whispered. "He has taught us courage, creativity, and hope. Humans, we can do more than survive. We can inspire." Ilara nodded, tears in her eyes. "Yes, my daughter. Humans are extraordinary, and so are you for believing in him." Kyle stood quietly watching the stars above. He knew the universe held more dangers, more challenges, and more mysteries. But he also knew that humans, when united with courage and intelligence, could face anything. In the village of Nyrith, life was changing. Trust was growing, skills were improving, and humans' quiet strength was shining as a beacon. The bond between Lyra, her mother, the villagers, and Kale had become unbreakable. And while the universe remained unpredictable, one truth had become clear. Humans could endure, protect, and inspire hope where it was needed most. The village of Nyrith lay quiet under the soft light of dawn. Birds sang and a gentle breeze rustled through the trees. Life had begun to flourish again, thanks to Kale's guidance and the courage of the villagers. But in the distance, beyond the mountains and hills, a shadow moved silently, an approaching force the village had never faced before. Kyle sensed it first. Standing atop a small hill, he observed the horizon with calm eyes. "They are coming," he said quietly. "Not scouts this time. Something much larger." Lyra, standing beside him, felt her heart tighten. "How can we face them? There are so many of them." Kale placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "We will face them together. Trust in what you have learned. Trust in each other. And trust in humans." The villagers gathered quickly, sensing the tension. Kale instructed them to take their positions, using the knowledge they had gained in the past weeks. Every ditch, every barrier, every small trap was now a part of their defense. "This is not just survival," Kale said. "This is proving that we can endure, adapt, and protect what matters. Humans can inspire courage in others. Let's show them why." From the distance, the threat appeared, a fleet of flying machines larger and faster than anything the villagers had ever seen. They descended over the fields, their engines roaring like thunder. Some were armed with energy beams. Others carried nets and traps designed to capture. The air shimmered with tension. Kale moved among the villagers, checking positions. "Remember your training. Stay calm, watch carefully. Work together. Use your minds as much as your strength." Lyra stood near the front, helping to organize the younger villagers. She had learned much from Kale, how to stay calm, how to think ahead, and how to act with courage. She now understood that human strength was not just physical. It was in their thinking, planning, and determination. The first wave of machines landed near the outer fields. Kale had prepared traps and barriers that slowed them, forcing them into predictable paths. Villagers worked as a team, using ropes, poles, and tools to defend themselves while staying safe. Kale shouted instructions calmly, but firmly. "To the left. Use the slope. Push them into the traps." The attackers were caught off guard. They had not expected the villagers to be so organized, so clever, so brave. Kyle's strategies, combined with the villagers' knowledge of the land, turned the tide of the battle. Lyra watched in awe as Kale moved among the chaos, helping where needed, guiding the villagers, and making split-second decisions. Every move was precise, every instruction clear. She realized then that humans' greatest power was not just survival, but the ability to inspire others to survive with them. Hours passed, and the battle raged, but gradually the invaders began to retreat. unable to overcome the unity, courage, and cleverness of Nyrith. Kale stood tall at the center, calm and focused, while the villagers cheered each small victory. Finally, the last of the attackers fled, leaving the village untouched. The villagers erupted in celebration, their voices echoing through the mountains. They had faced impossible odds and survived, not because of strength alone, but because of the ingenuity, courage, and guidance of a human. Alara embraced her daughter tightly. "You were right," she said softly. "This human, he is extraordinary, and so are you for believing in him." Lyra smiled, tears in her eyes. "We did this together, Mother. Humans survive, and we help others survive too." Kyle stood slightly apart, watching the celebration with quiet satisfaction. He had not sought glory, but he felt pride in what they had accomplished together. The villagers had learned that courage, cleverness, and cooperation could overcome even the most formidable challenges. The next morning, the village began repairing any damage and strengthening their defenses further. But the atmosphere was different now. Hope had replaced fear. Confidence had replaced doubt. The villagers worked side by side, inspired by the lessons Kale had taught them. Children practiced simple drills, learning coordination, observation, and quick thinking. Farmers applied the irrigation techniques Kale had shown them, improving their crops. Even the elders, once skeptical, now participated actively, sharing wisdom while learning new methods. Kyle walked through the village with Lyra, quietly observing. "You have all done well," he said softly. "Remember what you have learned. Remember that courage and intelligence are your greatest allies." Lyra nodded. "We will. And we will continue to teach others what we have learned." Alara approached Kale, holding her hands. "You saved my daughter and this village," she said, voice filled with emotion. "How can we ever thank you?" Kale shook his head. "You do not need to thank me. I only did what any human would do. Protecting others, helping them survive. That is what humans are capable of. That is all." The villagers gathered around the central square later that evening. Talon spoke first, his voice strong and confident. "We have seen courage, wisdom, and skill beyond our understanding. Humans endure, humans inspire, and humans can change the world around them." Lyra stepped forward, holding Kyle's hand. "This is true. Humans survive not because we are the strongest, but because we think, we act, and we care. Together we can face any challenge." The villagers cheered, feeling the truth of her words in their hearts. They had learned that survival required more than strength. It required planning, courage, and the willingness to help each other. Humans had shown them the way, and they had followed, growing stronger with each step. That night, under the star-filled sky of Veyara, Kale looked at Lyra and her mother. "The universe is vast," he said quietly. "There will be more dangers. There will be more challenges. But if humans endure, and if those we help endure with us, nothing is impossible." Lyra smiled, feeling hope and determination. "Then we will endure, and we will continue to inspire courage wherever we go." Alara hugged both of them tightly. "You have given us hope, strength, and a new beginning. I will never forget this day. Or you." Kale's eyes scanned the horizon one last time before he looked back at the villagers. "This is only the beginning," he said. "Humans survive. Humans endure. And humans inspire. That is who we are." The villagers nodded, understanding now the truth in his words. They had witnessed courage, intelligence, and determination beyond anything they had known. They had seen humans stand against impossible odds and triumph, and they knew that the lessons learned today would carry them through whatever the universe might bring next. The fire in the village square burned bright into the night. Villagers shared food, laughter, and stories, celebrating survival, courage, and unity. Kale and Lyra stood together, quietly observing, knowing their journey had changed not just one person, but an entire community. As dawn approached again, the village of Nearith awoke to a new era. Life continued stronger and wiser than before. Humans had proven their worth, not just through survival but through guidance, ingenuity, and the ability to inspire hope in others. And in the quiet moments between tasks, Kale, Lyra, and the villagers all understood the same truth. No matter how vast and dangerous the universe might be, courage, cleverness, and trust could light a path forward. Together they had survived. Together they had triumphed. Together they had begun a new era, a testament to the extraordinary strength and spirit of humans.